All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. Dillian Whyte with the breaking news. He saw umpteen years ago Deontay Wilder knocked out by Vladimir Klitschko, legs twitching, all kind of just dramatic situation. Yeah, right, Dillian. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please support the channel, subscribe. Also, much love, thank you to everybody who's joined the channel down there, all the Patreons and everybody that supports the channel during the live streams Monday through Friday and Sunday for OG Boxing Talk, where we wrap up the week in boxing. Okay, so Dillian Whyte is running off the lip again, man. Dillian Whyte has been the WBC mandatory for Deontay Wilder for like 13 years. And, you know, Deontay Wilder's running away from him when he sees him in the street, just, you know, scared to death of the guy, you know, according to Dillian Whyte. So Dillian Whyte comes out during this tremendous pursuit for Deontay Wilder, which we will talk about in this video, this pursuit that Dillian Whyte has had of Deontay Wilder, and says that he saw Deontay Wilder get knocked out by Vladimir Klitschko in sparring, and somehow that's supposed to mean something. Or number one, we're supposed to believe you, and number two, that somehow means something. Like, first, let's get on whether or not I believe him. I have no idea whether or not what he's saying is true or not. I do know that people get knocked out in sparring, and I know Vladimir Klitschko is big enough and very strong enough and good enough a fighter to knock somebody out. So there's the distinct possibility. What's the possibility of this being the first time anybody said this about Deontay Wilder in the first, how long has it been? At least 8 years since Deontay Wilder could have been a sparring partner for Vladimir Klitschko. Is slim and none and slim left town. Okay. All the stuff that I've heard about Deontay Wilder and sparring has related to David Haye, but somehow, and even David Haye has never like really signed on for the idea that he beat up Deontay Wilder in sparring. But let's just take first, you know, what value does Dillian Whyte get out of this? Out of claiming that Deontay Wilder got knocked out by Vladimir Klitschko. This is just, in my opinion, he gets to continue to clout chase Deontay Wilder and can continue to act as if he wants a fight with Deontay Wilder when this guy had every opportunity to fight Deontay Wilder and could have already been in the ring with Deontay Wilder if he would have done what Deontay Wilder asked him to do, or if he had done what the WBC had asked him to do. That's the thing that just really gets me about Dillian Whyte. I don't think Dillian Whyte really wants to fight Deontay Wilder. I think Dillian Whyte just wants to say that he wants to fight Deontay Wilder so you can continue to build up interest in fights that nobody really cares about. Dillian Whyte was told by Deontay Wilder that he would fight him if Deontay Wilder would fight Dillian Whyte if Dillian Whyte beat Luis Ortiz. Did he fight Luis Ortiz? No, he went some other route. It was also told to him that by the WBC that if he had fought Luis Ortiz, that they would make the mandatory. They would make the guy that won the mandatory. Did Dillian Whyte fight Luis Ortiz on that occasion? No, he did not. Also, when Dominic Breazeale was the mandatory, right? You know, the guy that was really the mandatory for a while, not this number one ranking that Dillian Whyte tried to pass off as being the mandatory, because you know the two are not the same thing. Okay, somebody has made the mandatory and the rankings can change. The guy could go from number one to number two, or to number one to number three, depending on what the WBC is doing with their rankings. Now, that may not make sense to people, but that's just what it is. And that's what happened with Dominic Breazeale. Dominic Breazeale, who was just the fight before last for Deontay Wilder, fought this year in the beginning of 2019. Deontay Wilder, when he fought Dominic Breazeale, that was his mandatory. So how in the world could you possibly have been the mandatory for 600 days when Dominic Breazeale was the mandatory up until the middle of last year? So it's just a bunch of make-believe crap coming up out of Dillian Whyte, man. Just a bunch of make-believe. It could have been you instead of Luis Ortiz that fought Deontay Wilder in the last fight. Because if you would have beaten Luis Ortiz before, and you would have been, he said he would take you as a voluntary, not even as a mandatory. He said he'd take you as a voluntary. If you had fought Dominic Breazeale, when Dominic Breazeale said that he would be willing to fight you to become the mandatory, you would have been the mandatory and fought Deontay Wilder when Dominic Breazeale got knocked out. So it's like this dude is just full of a bunch of make-believe, man. Even this thing with his brother, Dean Whyte. What kind of dude makes up that he has a brother and has the brother change his name to match his name? I mean, what kind of silliness is this from Dillian Whyte, man? Dillian Whyte's he's not a bad fighter. I don't think he's a great fighter. He looked like crap in his last fight, coming in just looking like every kind of a blob. But I mean, he's a good fighter. I wouldn't mind seeing Deontay Wilder fight Dillian Whyte. But the way that Dillian Whyte acts like he really doesn't want to fight Deontay Wilder, because if he wanted to fight him, he would have done one of the many things that would have been necessary in order for him to get the fight, and he would have already had the fight. He wouldn't have to wait around. He wouldn't have to wait around for Eddie Hearn to machinations to come up with a fight, right? Let's play the ratings game. No, we don't worry about fighting him, Luis Ortiz. We'll just wait past that and stay and get the mandatory, fighting whoever, so that we can make sure, hey, just get out of here with this nonsense. And as far as the knockout, I definitely have never seen Deontay Wilder knocked out, but I've seen Dillian Whyte knocked out. Okay, I haven't seen Deontay Wilder knocked out. Now Vladimir Klitschko might have staggered him. I've also seen Vladimir Klitschko knocked out. I've seen Vladimir Klitschko knocked out 3 times. I've seen Anthony Joshua knocked down. I think I've seen him knocked down 6 times. Is that 6 times he's been knocked down, or 5 times I've seen him knocked down? But he's been knocked down a good amount, and he got knocked down 4 times and quit against a guy that looks like a pizza man the fight before last. Okay, I've seen Lennox Lewis get knocked out. I've seen Tyson Fury get knocked out. Okay, matter of fact, I've seen Deontay Wilder knock out. I've seen Luis Ortiz get knocked out. I've seen a whole bunch of these guys get knocked out. Even if that was true, that Deontay Wilder got knocked out in sparring by Vladimir Klitschko early in his career, what difference does that make, man? That's just some petty gossip. It's just some petty headline grabbing gossip from Dillian Whyte, man. Dillian Whyte, personally, I don't think that Dillian Whyte should be allowed to fight Deontay Wilder until he actually has a B sample released. That's what I think he should. I think that should be the case. Until you work out the situation with those gloves and how you were allowed to get into a ring by the British Boxing Board of Control with a set of gloves that were not approved by Team Oscar Rivas. How you were able to get into a ring after having tested positive for D-ball, but yet the commission, the British Boxing Board of Control says, we'll just take your word for it. The levels are consistent with contamination. How do you get contaminated D-ball? D-ball you got to take orally. So how do you get that? How does that get contaminated? What did you just bump into with a candy factory that puts D-ball in their junior mints or something? What sense does that make? It's also, the levels are also consistent with microdosing. So look, man, Dillian Whyte's whole thing is foul, man. His whole thing is foul. The situation with the therapeutic use exemptions in the UK is foul. And this just gossip, there's just a bunch of talk out of Dillian Whyte, man. It's getting old. Dillian Whyte could have had this chance. He could have had the opportunity that he wanted already, but Anthony Joshua didn't want to fight Deontay Wilder, so Eddie Hearn would not agree to allow Deontay Wilder to fight Anthony Joshua next if it was for Dillian Whyte, if he fought Dillian Whyte. That's not on Dillian Whyte, but on Dillian Whyte is skipping a chance to fight Luis Ortiz twice, one of which would have made him a voluntary, the other one would have made him the mandatory, and also testing positive for D-ball. In my opinion, the guy shouldn't be allowed to fight until there's a B sample tested. Not just, let me restate that we're letting him off the hook like we let him off the hook to begin before. That's just a dog and pony show. Anyway, it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. With that, I'm out. Peace.